Hey everyone, my name is Neil and welcome back to my garage, and today we're going to be making an end table out of walnut. And just to let you know, there will be build plans available in case you want to pick them up. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so these are the pieces that we're going to need in order for our build. These are going to be leftover pieces that I have from another project, but you can go ahead and pick them up at the lumber yard. And then we're going to cut our first piece. So this is what's going to be our base. So we want to make sure we cut it to size so that when we glue it up, we have a nice straight edge. So we're going to remove that piece. And then now we're going to take that off and we're going to cut our longer piece, which is going to be our middle shelf and our tabletop. Okay, after that, now we're going to cut these to length. And so we're going to move over to the miter saw and then we're going to mark the first piece. And this is going to be for our base. We're going to use a speed square to make sure that we get a nice accurate cut. And then we're going to go ahead and cut this with the miter saw. So you want to make sure that you cut it in at least 2 passes so that you have a nice clean cut and reduce the chance of tear out. Okay, and so we're going to be putting down the stop block now because I'm going to be making repeatable cuts for the other 4 pieces that we're going to cut. So this is where a stop block comes in handy. And same thing here, we're going to be using a 2-pass method for our cut. And the good thing about the stop block is after you cut that first piece, you can now just move it over and then cut your next piece and they're going to be the same length. So even if you're off, it doesn't matter as much as long as they're the same length. So now we're going to move over to the simple cart that I built. I have a video link for that. And we're going to put our pieces on here and we're going to grab our parallel clamps and then we're going to be using Type Bond 2 dark glue for this because it's walnut. And so we want to put a generous amount on there and we want to go ahead and brush it on so that we get every single inch. And then we're going to be gluing up this panel. You don't want to clamp this too tight, but you want to make sure that you have just enough pressure on there. We're going to be using these F clamps to make sure that doesn't bow up in the middle. And then again, you want to add a small amount of pressure, not too much, otherwise you're going to risk it bowing and not being flat. And then we're just going to clean off the excess with water. All right, so here are the 3 panels that we glued up. It's 6 pieces in total. They all have the clamps holding them. And then we're going to be using a mix of parallel clamps and bar clamps. So we'll come back tomorrow. All right, guys, it's the next day and we're going to go ahead and take the panels out of the clamps that we glued up yesterday. And I just want to take a few seconds to say, if you like what you see so far, go ahead and hit the thumbs up for this video and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any of the future videos I upload. All right, let's go ahead and continue on. So next on the list, we're going to go ahead and take these F clamps off the panels and then we're going to take the panels out of the clamps. So here they're really stiff and they're held together very nicely. And so the glue up went perfect. And I'm just showing you here that we're going to have to sand those down. But before we do that, we want to go ahead and cut our panels to the proper width and length now. So we're going to be using a miter sled to do that over on the table saw. And then you just want to be cautious here that you have a miter sled. And so another thing you also want to be cautious of is making sure that none of those pieces fly back at you and you don't have any kickback. And so here's a template that I made in order to cut out the holes for the dowels. So we're just going to be using this template to mark where we want to for our Forstner bit. And you can see here, that's going to mark the center. Then we're going to take the template off and we're going to use that same Forstner bit in order to cut the depth for our base. We're going to do it for both the base and the tabletop. And then now we're going to move over here using our Kreg jig and we're going to mark the radius that we need for all of the panels. And so we're going to be using a pull saw in order to cut off a big bulk of that. And then now we're moving over here. And once we've cut off the big bulk, we're going to go ahead and go over with a router and we're going to trim off the rest of that and make sure that's nice and use a sanding block to sand it down. And then just to make sure that we don't have the sharp edges because walnut is sharp, we're going to be using a router bit, a 1/8 over roundover bit in order to get rid of that sharp edge. All right, guys, so here we're going to be marking our line. Sorry, I didn't get footage on how I cut these dados in these dowels. Basically, I just took a router and I moved it back and forth until I got to the desired depth. Or you can try using a pull saw or a miter saw to cut those dados as well. And then here we're going to be marking the center so that we know exactly where to put our drill bit. Now this drill bit did walk on me just a little bit when I started drilling, but that's okay. I just compensated for it in the middle shelf itself. And then now here we're going to drill the other side. and we're just going to be putting those 2 holes in there for our 1/4 inch dowels. And here now you can see us putting together our middle shelf with the dowels that we have. And I really wanted to make sure that I got this depth right, so I used tape in order to mark my line so that we don't hit too much of the dowel into the hole. Okay, so here we're going to be water popping our lumber so that we can raise the grains so that it comes out rough, and then we could sand it down smooth. That way when we add our finish, it doesn't then become rough and cause a problem later. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and mark our line so that we know where we've sanded, and then we can go ahead and sand the base and the tabletop and the middle shelf. So this is going to take at least an hour, hour and a half to do, so make sure you take your time. And then we're going to be marking where we want to put the feet. So we're going to be putting in threaded inserts, and then we're going to be putting in feet into those threaded inserts. So what I like to do is I like to drill it twice. I'm going to be using a smaller diameter drill bit here. Then I'm going to come through with the final drill bit diameter for the threaded insert. If I could do this again, I would do a countersink as well before I put in the threaded insert, but that's something that I can do on the next time. This is actually the first time I'm using threaded inserts. I'm really happy with the way this came out. And then I'm going to try not using brass next time, but still. So now that we have that thread insert in there, you can go ahead and see that we're going to be putting in the foot. Now we can adjust the base if the floor isn't level. Hey guys, welcome back. So I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to front. It's been over a month since I cut my first piece of lumber for this table, and I got it to about 80% and then pushed it to the side. I just want to be honest and let you know it happens in my garage as well. So that now that we have everything sanded and ready to go, we're going to put this together and hopefully finish up this project today. All right, let's continue on. Okay, I just want to be honest there. So now we're going to be taking our wood glue that we used earlier, and we're going to be brushing that inside the dado for our dowels so that we could put our middle shelf in that dado. So here I'm just making sure that it goes through, and then we're also going to take some wood glue and we're going to be putting it on our dowel, and then we're going to hit our dowel inside our other dowel in the middle shelf. You want to make sure you put wood glue on the dowel so that when it swells up, it creates a nice tight bond as well. And this shelf, once everything is dry, it's not going anywhere. So you want to do the same thing with the other side as well, and just hammer that in. And then don't forget to wipe off the excess glue, or you can wait till the glue dries a little and then take a chisel or a straw and take that out. And then here I'm just putting the clamps on so that it holds it tight. Okay, same thing here. This is going to be our tabletop, which is what we're going to put first, and we're going to put wood glue in there and repeat that process. And then we're going to make sure that that has just enough glue in it, and then we're going to take the dowels that we just put together and we're going to put that down into the hole. And then we're going to knock that in just to make sure that it goes in perfectly fine, and then wipe off the excess as well. And then we're going to check for square to make sure that everything's good. And then here's the base. So for the base, we're going to put more wood glue in, and then we're going to turn it upside down so that the tabletop is on the top, and then we're going to knock that into the base. Okay, now that that's knocked in, at first I decided that I wanted to use clamps in order to hold this in place and check for square, but then I figured that that'd put too much pressure on it and it started to lean a little. So I ended up taking those long clamps off and then just clamping speed squares to it to see if it would hold. So far everything looks good. And then when I came back in the next day, it was time to take those speed squares off and see if everything was good or not. And it was. And then now here we're cutting our excess dowel, and then we're going to go ahead and sand that down and wipe off the excess. So everything is good. We're ready now to start cleaning it, and we're going to add finish. I was going to go with Rubio Monocoat, but when I checked, I didn't have that much left and I need it for another project. So I decided to switch to General Finish High Performance Satin and use that instead. Now, I've never used this before on Walnut. It's the first time, but I also don't plan on keeping this piece. So for me, it's the perfect project to try it out and see if I like it. So we're going to apply finish. And I'm not going to spend too much of your guys' time here watching me apply finish. See how this thing came out. And it came out beautifully. I added about 3 coats of General Finish High Performance, and it looks perfect. The video doesn't do it justice. Just the way the sun hits it is perfect. I will definitely be using General Finish again on Walnut, although I am still a Rubio Monocoat guy at heart. Alright guys, so that's the end of the video. Let me know what you liked and did not like. Don't forget, we also do have build plans for this end table, and all the mistakes have been corrected. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.